Caution: this game contains scenes of violence and gore, as well as depictions of criminal acts. These acts are strictly punished by law. Please do not attempt to imitate them. This game also contains themes of sexual violence and self-harm. This game is a work of fiction. Any relationship to real persons, groups, places, or crimes is coincidental. Destin! Far too long to be called a sword. So delicate it felt like it'd snap at any moment. Filled with an unearthly elegance, but not a trace of ornamentation. Pure malice that threatened to drain away your soul. Beautiful curves that inspired awe and fear. The flames decorating its hilt flickered in time with the beating of my racing heart. It didn't feel heavy at all. In fact, it felt like it had become one with my hand, like it was always there, a part of my body. I didn't feel like I was really holding a sword at all. So this was a D-sword! I held it tight with both hands. Right now I could real boot it too. If I could make people around me aware of it too. This sword would become real. I didn't know how, so I just focused. Become real, I shouted in my mind. There was no more hesitation. The D-sword began to glow, as if an answer to my call. The decorative flames on the hilt became real, engulfing the blade in fire. I didn't feel any heat. The flames were soon absorbed by the whole blade. And with a violent shockwave, the D-sword glowed red. Some of the people around me saw the weapon and were watching in shock, but only a few, the others still fighting and cursing one another. The riots showed no signs of stopping. Look for the porters who are causing the riot. If you can destroy the devices they hold, the crowd's biorhythms will return to no more. Porters? Terminals of Noah 2. You've already seen the hint you need. The memories exist within your mind. I awakened it, the thing I've seen.
L2 の8 0.62 メガ GE ハイスコアです。どんなゲージなんだこれは。のぞみ。我が社ではポーターと呼んでいます。言い換えればマインドコントロールのための部隊といった。
Things I'd seen unconsciously, the things I'd unconsciously read with my mind. So I'm the one who's been spying on people's minds. I guess that's appropriate. I left out a small, self-replicating chuckle as Shogun calmly gave me my next directions. Unlock the channels. Read the porter's mind, like Kozupi does. They're somewhere here in Scramble Crossing. Find them. Unlock the channels. I didn't even have to think about how I'd do it. I'd already done it before I could even think about it. And when I did, the minds of all these people, their negative emotions, all became visible to me. It all came flooding in at once. Malice, hatred, jealousy, lust, subservience, cowardice, frivolity, filth, cunning, indecency, ugliness, vulgarity, greed, madness, murder. The hidden ugliness of all these people was revealed to me in a more direct way, more cruel, more terrible than words. All negative emotions mankind could possess came at me in a torrent of images, enveloping my mind and violating and shattering it. They looked at me with disgust, hurt me with their words, spat on me. My nails were torn off. I was punched again and again in the face, kicked from behind. My hair was ripped out, my nose was bitten off, my eyeballs were pulled from their sockets, my tongue was yanked from my mouth, my blood was drained, I was burned by hot water, my genitals were smashed, my skin was torn off, my arms were cut off, my bones were broken, I was struck with blunt weapons, stabbed with sharp ones. My organs were torn out. I was strangled, eaten by huge beasts, pushed off of high places, drowned in the water, burnt in the flames. If I synchronized with them all, my mind would shatter. I felt like I was going crazy. I bit my teeth and tried as hard as I could to focus. Had Kozue lived her whole life like this? Control the delusion so you see what you need to see. Don't try to take them all in. Narrow your target. Rely on the sound. Sound. I listened as hard as I could, struggling to fight off the waves of delusions. All I could hear were voices. I shut them out and searched for the sound. I heard it, a mechanical sound. The sound Saratan had said would kill me. I heard it in the memories of others too. Senna had used her D-sword to destroy the porter's backpack that had been emanating the sound. If I focused on it, I could hear a very specific delusion. There were multiple voices. There was more than just one porter here, it seemed. 3 of them. I held my breath and took a step forward. The crowd was chaotic, had no one. Everyone in the scrambled crossing was moving around, fighting without the slightest regard for another human being. It was hard to walk straight. I hacked into illusions of people. Oh my god, I actually said that right. In a direction I was going. The people in front of me were beginning to part. They made a path before me. 50 meters away, I saw a single man. There was nothing standing between us now. Our eyes met. He was pudgy, wearing a suit and carrying a backpack. Number 1. Shh! I ran. I ran through the crowd, without running into anyone. Straight ahead, via the fastest possible route, trailing the D-sword behind me. When the porter saw me, he turned tail and tried to run, but I wouldn't let him. Just like Senna had done, I swung the huge D-sword, taller than I was, in a horizontal arc. It still seemed to weigh nothing. I could control it like it was part of my body. Got his ass. Its tip sliced into the backpack. The backpack and its contents were vaporized, as if they'd been melted by something impossibly hot. The man dropped to his knees, holding his hands over his head to protect himself. I ignored him and headed for the second one. I would have slimed that nigga out, I'm just saying. Directly beneath O-Front. Once again, the obstacles between us disappeared. A path formed. A man was standing there. He was rail thin and wearing jeans and a checkered shirt. His hair was long, and the skin was a sickly pale. He was holding his bag carefully like it contained some dear treasure. He noticed me and immediately tried to hide within the crowd. Before he could, I threw the D-sword. Fly. I envisioned the scene in my delusion. It ignored all laws of physics, flying parallel to the ground and accelerating as it went. It subtly altered its course as it flew and rammed straight through the boarder's backpack. There was a small burst of light and the man toppled to the ground. One left. I ran over to the fallen man and recovered my D-sword. The third was in front of the Hachiko statue. I knew this one. I'd encountered them a few times before. Actually, in fact, I talked to her almost every day. The crowd parted, and once again a path was formed. At the end of it, I saw a woman who looked very out of place. She was in a white nurse's outfit.
あなたが3人目です。葉月さん。いや、グリム。
The nurse who smiled so kindly at me at the hospital. She was glaring at me, daggers in her eyes. There was a large handbag in her hands. It was probably a Noah 2 terminal.
真実を暴くんだ。彼女がしてきたことをこの場にいる人たちに提示。この熱病のような混乱は収まる。
What she's done.
彼女がグリムなら
She's grim. Then you should have noticed some things that didn't make sense.
君は僕が最初に君に
Remember,
接触した
the
時
first time we spoke,
僕は君に
I told you about the
貼り付け
crucified
事件の
murder.
予言をした。
It was a warning to you.
でも僕よりも
But before I
貼り
did,
付けを予言した
someone else
人間
had told you about it too.
No.
I remembered. I remembered the chat log from that night. Just before Shogun had spoken to me, Grim had left the room, along with a joke image she'd drawn. It was the one that Hazuki had been drawing at the medical charts. It was a very poorly drawn picture, but what it showed was the crucified murder. And then there were, this is genuine, like, surprise my voice too, I forgot about this. And then there were, because this was like in March, and then there was what Grim, and it's September now, and then there was what Grim had said about the Nugent murders too. It's all happening right near your house, Lol. I never told him I lived in Shibuya. And even just a few hours ago, Grim had said something that showed he knew I was talking to Nishijo. At this point, I thought it was just because he was a delusion. Like, Grim was like part of it. You're famous, though. I'll be excited to see you. And then the second time I'd gone to the hospital, Hazuki had said this.
高階先生はもういません。
A week later, Takashina was found dead. I
あの
gulped.
人が
So she's
真犯人
the real killer? I could find out if I looked. I looked into her mind.
信仰の救いあれ。
Shino Hazuki was standing in the operating room of an AH Tokyo General Hospital where she worked. It was late at night. On the bed was a young man, Chizuo Konoe. He'd been put into a state of semi-unconsciousness by a sleeping drug.
信仰の救いあれ。
She kept repeating the same phrase over and over, like a mantra, as she rubbed her heavily pregnant belly. She slipped off her white uniform, sat down on the table, and picked up a knife. What the fuck?
救いあれ。
What the fuck? And then with no anesthetic, she cut open her stomach. There was a deftness in her touch that would have made any gynecologian or surgeon envious. Despite having no training as a surgeon, and despite all the pain that would come from slicing open her own stomach, she cut clean, even lines. Blood and amniotic fuel poured from her open wound. Her face stretched in pain. And when she, oh my god, she fucking... I just realized where I heard that name from. She gave herself a C-section and put the baby in him. She cut the umbilical cord and gave her child a loving hug before placing it in the stand next to the operating table and sewing up her wounds. The whole operation took less than an hour. The whole time she was exposed to incredible pain in her abdomen, the kind of pain that would have long since knocked out a normal person. She stood up from the operating table and brought the baby over to the man on the bed. She looked down on the unconscious man with bloodshot eyes before stabbing hard into his belly. There was none of the grace and exactness she'd shown when cutting her own stomach. The man woke up from the pain, but his limbs had been tied down tightly. There was no way for him to escape. She yanked the knife across his stomach, oblivious to his screams, tore through flesh and skin. Blood spurted out, splashing all on her face. May the divine light save you! She put her hands into the open wound, then she yanked it as open as hard as she could. The sound of ripping meat filled the operating room. The man's body began to twitch, and the pain made him slip in and out of consciousness. When she saw the wound was big enough, Hazuki smiled gently. Then she took her own baby and jammed it into the wound. Ooh, I don't like that shit one bit. And here I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, she would be, you know, just a normal person taken advantage of by the divine light. But there's a certain limit to your there's a certain limit to your loyalty to your religion, where it's no longer psychosis, it's no longer a blind faith, and now it's just you just going along with it. Hey, by the way, it's Tuesday, the 23rd, and shit, I'm still here. I guess I must not have been good enough to go to heaven. That's rough. There were 4 big TVs in Scramble Crossing, and all of them were showing her memories. She couldn't understand how it happened. It had to be Takumi Nishijo's gigalomaniac powers.
あなたの
These are your memories.
記憶です
Takumi spoke with his head down and D-sword in hand. The riot calmed itself instantly. Now there was only silence. The thousands of people who'd been fighting were now all staring up at the screen. Some turned pale and looked away. Some threw up on the spot. The media were trying to turn their cameras on Hazuki. She was blinded by one camera flash after
あなた
another.
が
You were the one
ミュ
behind
ージ
the
ェネ事
Nugent
件の
killings,
真
weren't
犯
you?
人だったんだ
私の記憶を映像に投影したんですね。
Honestly, maybe I should have been asking myself more. I didn't ask myself why she had a CG, like a full picture, because I was like, well, Bon and Sua have, at that point, Sua was just the guy who showed up like once. So I was like, okay, he'll be important later. But, that's why he has one. Bon has one. Momose has one. Yua, Nanami, everybody who's like named has one. So, like, of course, she has one. When she and Dr. Takashina have one, he'll be here at the hospital a lot. Or at least I didn't think he'll be at the hospital a lot, but once he kept coming to the hospital, I was like, yeah, of course she has a thing. She's important, she's at the hospital, he's at the hospital. That's also probably why she was willing to talk to Sua about his medical records. That's why he specifically asked her and why she was willing. Because they're both divine lighters and she's the new Jin.
もう言い逃
You
れは
won't be
で
able to
きま
talk
せ
your
ん
way out of this.
胎児とあなたの DNA を鑑定すればわかることです。どうしてあんなことを
Why did you do it? Tell me, Grim.
ねえクリム
ナイトハルト
Nightheart.
すべては
I was
教
only
祖様
following
の
the
お言葉なん
leader's
ですよ。
instructions. Asuki put her hand into the handbag on her shoulder. It contained a Noah 2 surgical port and a terminal knife. She grabbed the knife and put it against her neck. As a nurse, she knew exactly where the carotid artery was. She smiled at Takumi, her own kind smile, the one she always showed her patients.
信仰で救い
Was quickly stained by red blood spurting from her neck.
エスパーだ。
He's a psychic. He's our savior, someone whispered. Only after I could feel many gazes upon me did I realize she was talking about me. Shino Hazuki had committed suicide by cutting her own throat in front of a huge crowd of people. Maybe it would be more accurate to say she martyred herself. I could still smell the disgusting scent of blood. The riot had completely calmed now. Shino Hazuki's memories, displayed on the huge screens, were the perfect way to calm the people's excitement. Everyone had fallen dead silent at the shocking footage. Blood was still pouring from her corpse. Several people walked over to her. They started to kick her dead body like Sylphiette in the evil timeline. It's the corpse of a murderer. Did that mean there was no need to show it any respect? Are they going to chop off her head and display it somewhere like they did back when there was still samurai around? Where they hung up Mussolini on fucking meat hooks? How much of a difference was there between her and the people kicking her body? Humans were such ugly creatures, including me. The media crowded their big scoops like packs of hyenas. Half of it went to Hazuki's body, the other half to me. Shijo, that was us.
今のは超能力ですか？
Logan
や
reference?
はりエスパーだったんですね。すごいです。
今日のこの集まりは初めから真犯人をおびき寄せるためのものだったの？
あなたの超能力は何歳頃に現れたものなんですか？
子供の頃のあだ名は神道とか呼ばれたことある？
今後警察の捜査に協力する予定は？
うちの局の番組に出てくれないかな？
Words of praise one after another. Nishijo, great job. Takumi over here. You're amazing. I love you. Please be my boyfriend. Friendly words one after another. I felt the emptiness in all of them. What was the difference between a delusion and a fake image created by the media? Probably wasn't much of one if there was that one at all. Takumi. It was just like last time. The heat I felt when they were looking up at me from the bottom of the O-front building.
うるさ
I screamed. I couldn't take it
い手の
anymore.
ひら返して英雄扱いかよバカみたいな
I had to cry. I was no
僕
hero.
はキモオタ
I'm
で
an otaku loser, a pervert who
セー
spends
ラ
all
と
day
エロい
drinking.
にヒヤヒヤ
Oh,
してる変
you
態
didn't
だ
have to tell everybody that.
18歳未満だ
I'm not even 18 and I still play H games all day. In my head, I'm stripping every girl I see on the street naked and imagining all kinds of things to do to her. That's who I am. My face was covered with tears and snot. I'd forgotten that all of Japan was watching me on live TV. I hadn't thought about what I was embarrassing myself again. I was a loser with no social skills, no ability to read the room.
そうだよ
Well, am I still a
俺
hero?
違う
No, I'm no hero. I'm just
僕は英
delusion.
雄なんか
A
じゃない
creep. failure who can't do anything on
所
my
詮
own.
妄想の存在で希望だぜ。一人じゃ何もできないヘタレだ。
The voices around me fell silent. The crowd stopped cheering. The media were looking at me confused and suspicious. Here in the middle of Shibuya, in the heart of Scrambled Crossing, my voice was the only sound.
それが僕だ。お前らに他人に僕っていう人間を決めさせない。僕の本質は僕が決める。僕はお前らのおもちゃじゃない。僕にはやるべきことがあるんだ。僕はお前たちなんかのために行動しない。
Suddenly, I saw an image of Rimi's
僕
face.
は
I just want to fight for the person I care about, and then disappear. But before I could say that, suddenly something in the night sky was turning white. It wasn't a cloud, it wasn't an out-of-season snowfall, it's an earthquake. It was the same phenomenon that occurred during the last earthquake. By the time I realized that, it was
サー
too
ドメ
late.
ルト
Third
予
melt?
定より
It
早い
wasn't supposed to happen this soon. First, there was the rumbling. The ground shook. The white cum in the sky spread further and further. Next, a terrible ringing in my ears, the high-pitched sound of something resonating that threatened to split open my head. Everyone around me was holding their ears as well. And then, the whole world turned white. I was standing on the water. The water was so clear. It was almost transparent. It was shallow. It only came up to my ankles. It didn't feel cold. I could hear the intermittent sound of the waves. I was holding the handles of a wheelchair. Shogun, no. The real Takumi Nishijo was right in front of me, wearing his knitted cap. He was sitting in his wheelchair, back bent slightly forward. And there was nothing at all around us. You might expect to see a shell buried in the sand, or a seagull soaring through the sky. But there was nothing like that at all. There were no signs of life. Only the blue sea and clear sky. The world was flat and level, as far as I could see, extending all the way to the horizon. This wasn't the real world.
近いうちに死ぬんだ
I'm going to die soon, you see. I could hear Shogun's voice mixed in with the breaking waves. I couldn't see the look on his face from where I was standing. There was no real sorrow in his voice. There was no real emotion at all.
体を見てもら
I think you can tell that just by looking at my body. It was reed thin, small, covered in wrinkles, and his hair had fallen
う
out.
先天的な病
It's a congenital disease.
僕の体の成
My body stopped growing at the age of 10 when it manifested.
そして
And now,
老化して
I'm growing old. So that's why he remembers elementary school, but not middle school. Neat. Early aging. It was a rare disease that affected 1 in 8 million people. I remembered hearing about it.
10歳って
The age of 10. I remembered the terrible experience I'd experienced at
あ
the
の
age.
バス事故
3 months before the bus accident. That's when it happened.
僕が発症したバス事故は
Did you cause the bus accident?
そうかもしれない
Maybe. At the time, I barely knew anything about my own power.
力についてほとんど自覚はなかったけど病が発症する
Far before the illness appeared.
それこそ
When I was very, very young, I'd been able to use my Gigalomaniac power.
X としての力を使うことができたそれが
I thought that was
あり
normal.
がとうなってたよ意識的にしろ
I've used it many times, consciously and subconsciously.
何度も力を使ってきただから
And so, my body started to contradict itself.
過ぎちゃったんだ青い背中が
Sena Aoi told you about this, right?
粒子とともに追
The
跡される
antiparticles, which are produced alongside the particles, build up within the D sword.
反粒子は数学的に
Mathematically, antiparticles are things that go into the past.
ストックすればする
The more they build up,
ギガロマニア
the more your Gigalomaniac finds himself becoming disconnected from the present
や
state.
がてその矛盾に
Eventually,
存在と
this
しての
disconnect causes their very being to collapse. Can you not stare at me like that? Shogun was unmoving in his wheelchair. What was he looking at? What could he see?
力を使え
The more I used my power, the more the disease progresses. Can you use a Gigalomaniac power to fix it? Using my power advances the disease. Essentially, if I try, the two cancel each other out. Nothing changes. Why? Why did you make a loser, a creepy otaku like me? Couldn't you have made somebody stronger, more handsome, more aggressive? Creating a person essentially one who could use a Gigalomaniac's power is no easy task. I had to go into a coma for almost a year to create you. So I was incomplete. And that's what makes you so very human. You don't need to try to make me feel better. I mean it. I sighed. I really did hate this guy. Rimi always told me not to use my power. She got very angry. She wants to save you, right? But I couldn't give her what she wanted. The danger we face now is because of my IR2. IR2, the strange scribbling on the back of the essay. IR2 caught the eye of a certain scientist, and eventually Nozomi Technologies began researching it. The result of that research was Project Noah. Essentially, a way to artificially mimic a Gigalomaniac's powers. I was only able to realize his existence after meeting Rimi. She was being horribly tortured as part of the project. Code samples are needed to make the Noah systems more efficient. These are unique brainwave patterns emitted when Gigalomaniacs use their powers. The president of Nozomi, a man named Norose, was horribly torturing Rimi to get the samples. Powerful negative emotions are what cause a Gigalomaniac to awaken and attain their D-sword, you know. Once again, I remembered what Senna said. Escalated biorhythms cause an overproduction of dopamine in the neurons of the mesolimbic system. That's when the D-sword appears. That can happen during dangerous situations or when you're feeling excitement, sadness, hatred, or laughter. It depends on the person. The greater the amount of dopamine, the easier it is to receive the D-sword. And that's why you came after me? Yeah, to awaken your power. I'm sorry. It wasn't just me and Rimi. Other people had been physically and psychologically tortured as part of Project Noah as well, to awaken them as Gigalomaniacs. ISA, Senna, Kosupi, even Nanami, they'd all been made to suffer. Noah 2 was created from IR2. I had to stop it myself. But with my body like this, I can barely even move. And Nozomi started to come after me too. They wanted my code sample. The fact that I was staying at AH Tokyo Hospital made matters even worse. It has secret connections to the Nozomi group. So, I had to hide. That means your Ami, the girl in the hospital room nobody could find. The one and only who could get to me was Rimi. I stopped being able to even move, and then you made me. Shogun nodded slightly. Rimi kept begging me to erase you. She said that keeping you alive was wearing away my life. But I don't have much time left. Even if I don't use my power, it won't make much of a difference. His voice was so very calm. Maybe it was the calm of someone who was given a death sentence years ago. And I knew if you awakened and learned to use your power, I wouldn't last. Because you and I are one mind? That's right. But promise me one thing. No more delusions. Okay? Your delusions are very strong. The more delusions you create, the more it consumes the life of your real self. If I kept my promise to Rimi, I wouldn't be able to go save her. Even if I try, I'd be helpless to do anything. How much more time do you think you have? Today, or tomorrow, I think. That soon? I was stunned. It was far less than I expected. Is it because I woke up? You don't need to worry about it. Your awakening is what I wanted to happen. What happens to me if you die? You share the same mind as me. You're also a real human being, created via real booting. Maybe you weren't born the same way as other people were, but you're still human. If I disappear, will you survive? No. I think my lifespan would go from a few days to a few weeks. But don't even think about making such a stupid decision. I want you to destroy Noah too. And I want you to use as much of your power as it takes to do it. Yeah, I get it. I'm not enough of a softie to hold back for your sake. Shogun laughed. His shoulders shook just a little. I didn't mean to make him laugh, so it made me mad. I'm glad you woke up. It may be selfish of me, but I'm going to let you handle the rest. Suddenly, the feeling of the handles of the wheelchair disappeared from my hand. His wheelchair moved away from me and was gliding across the water. The wheels were slicing through the surface, creating little waves. I had no intention of following him. I just watched him go. My job is finished. That's really selfish. You're just gonna go make me do all the work? I'm a little tired. Let me sleep. He turned his wheelchair back around to face me. Like always, I couldn't read his expression. There was tension in his voice. There's no time. Hurry. Norose has brought Noah 2 online at full power. The only way to stop it now is to destroy Noah 2 directly. I'm counting on you. And then he disappeared, like he'd vanished in a fog. The colors of the mental world slowly began to fade. You don't have the right to ask me for anything. I'm just doing what I chose to do. The sound of waves got further and further away. I took a good long look at the endless blue sky to burn it into my memory, like Rimi had once done. Then I softly closed my eyes. The serious-sounding voice of a newscaster was coming from the radio. Current confirmed fatalities stand at 223, but this number is expected to reach over 30,000. The Meteorological Agency announced that an earthquake had an intensity of 7 and a magnitude of 7.8, rivaling the Great Kanto earthquake. Some buildings in Shibuya have collapsed and large sinkholes have appeared. The Shibuya section of the highway system has been shut down due to road cave-ins. All railway lines in the area, including the Yamanote line, are not operating at this time. There was a crackle of static before the voice on the radio vanished entirely. No good! It stopped picking up anything again. Momose picked up the old portable radio, shook it, and then smacked it a few times before letting out a big sigh. This old thing's a heap of junk. She forced out a... Yeah, she let out a forced smile and looked to the side. Next to her were tired-looking Ayase Kishimoto and Yua Kusunoki. Both Ayase and Yua's clothes were covered in dirt, and it was obvious how difficult it must have been for them to get this far. But in their hands, the D-swords didn't have a speck of dust on them. Their cold light was as bright as ever. After the earthquake, Yua and Ayase had walked from Yoyogi to Shibuya, then headed to Frisia's office to meet with Momose. The three of them had waited at a spot near the office, whose buildings seemed tilted badly during the earthquake, and now seemed in danger of falling over, hoping that Bon would show up. But even by the time morning came, there was no sign of him. Momose had suggested leaving Shibuya, but Ayase rejected the idea. Lachiel has awakened. We need to find the rest of the Black Knights. Then she tried to drag Yua out into the rubble of central Shibuya. Lacking any better options, Momose and Yua had come with her. It was 7 in the morning. The sun hadn't even been up for a fucking hour yet. There was no sign of whatsoever crisp morning air. Nightfall had hidden the full extent of yesterday's disaster, but now the dawn's light began to expose it, and they were in the middle of it. Shibuya was a scene from disaster. Huge cracks had appeared in the roads, and their asphalt had bulged up from beneath the ground. Several buildings had fallen over, burying the streets around them in rubble. Most of the glass had shattered, and the huge billboards on the roof had fallen off the sides. There were dead bodies lying everywhere, exposed to the elements. At first, Momose would feel very terrible each time she saw one, and gave them a silent prayer in her heart. But there were so many that she soon had to force herself not to think about them. If she did, it would break her. Once in a while, she passed by someone else. They were all expressionless. They all seemed to be slowly wandering the city with no destination in mind. Several men were working together to save some of the people trapped by rubble, but without any equipment, it was a hopeless cause. Momose turned to look at the thing in Yua's hands. A D-sword. Ayase had explained what it was to her. A sword which would create things from nothing, as if by magic. What Bon had said was true. Yua seemed surprised and confused that she herself had one of the swords. So, Kishimoto. Ayase was walking ahead of her, and didn't even turn around when Momose spoke. There was a tense nervousness on her face. So, there are 7 people with these D-swords, including you? That's right. Do you know where they are? I don't. Then, I can feel it. The will. We're going the right way. Ayase was no help. Momose sighed and repeated the same thing she'd been saying all morning. It's dangerous to be wandering around out here. We should get somewhere safe. No. There's no time. You don't think the other, Black Knights was it? You don't think they're at evacuation shelters? She's right, Kishimoto. I think we should get to a shelter too. Perhaps Yua was more persuasive than Momose had been, because Ayase suddenly stopped. Her eyes narrowed. She was staring down a street of Dogonzaka Hill, which was now completely impassable to cars. There. Huh? What's there? Senna and Kozuo. Oh, shit! Nanami has seen better days. She was wearing a Suimei uniform, but her clothes were more of a mess than Ayase or Yua's. She was holding a huge cross-shaped sword up to her chest with just her left hand. Her steps were unsteady, as if she might fall over any moment. Oh, fuck no! Momose ran towards the girl, Nanami Nishijo, her plump body shaking with each step. She was concerned about the D-sword in Nanami's hands, but for now she was more concerned about helping her. She grabbed her tiny body and helped her stay upright. Are you okay? You did a great job getting this far. I'll make sure you get into a hospital, so just hang in there. Nanami looked at her with vacant eyes. Bon, go. Huh? What did you say? Where's my bangle? Yua and Ayase ran up to her as well, just a moment after Momose. This girl! This is Nichijo's little sister! I see. If she's Takami's younger sister, that explains what she has what it takes to be a Black Knight. Both of you help me with her. We have to get her to a hospital. It hurts. Nanami moaned in pain. My right hand. Right hand? Momose took a quick glance down at her hand, only to gasp in shock. Oh no, this is... Huh? Oh, Yua and Ayase couldn't understand why Momose was so shocked. Nanami's hand was wrapped in a bloody bandage, but it didn't look that badly injured. But to Momose's eyes, her hand ended in a bloody stump at the wrist. It had to been sewn up, but the wound had opened. Ayase tried to grab hold of Nanami's right hand at the fingers, and a blank expression on her face, but the hand passed through empty air. Her fingers were like a hologram, visible without substance. Blood dripped from the red bandage and fell onto Ayase's hands. A delusion? Rimi, save me. Rimi? You mean Rimi Sakihara? You know her? Yes, she's a friend of Nishijo's. Yua had thought that Takumi was a Nujin killer, and had spent a lot of time investigating him and the surroundings. Of course, that includes people he spent the most time with, like Nanami and Rimi. Ayase's expression darkened just slightly when she heard Rimi's name. Rimi Sakihara is one of the 7 Black Knights. Huh? Is that right? Ayase remembered what had happened at the hospital yesterday. She remembered the sadness in Rimi's voice. Kishimoto. Leave Taku alone. I don't want him to wake up. Don't you know who you are? What your role is? As a Black Knight? I'll handle this myself. Somehow. Bitch! Your feelings are a beautiful thing, but that's not what the Great Will desires. I don't want it either. I don't want you to have to bear all the burdens yourself. I did not expect it to cut back to Nanami. We have to get her to a hospital right away. The bleeding's bad. Momose put her handkerchief against Nanami's wounds. She has a terrible fever and she's deathly pale. We need to hurry. I want to see my brother. I'm so in love with Nanami's character. A single tear dripped from her empty eyes. And just after that, it happened without warning. What the fuck? The street they were standing on collapsed. The ground fell from underneath them and they began to fall. It was like they were falling into the darkness of an endless abyss. Momose screamed in a voice that sounded much too afraid and immature for someone her age. I looked up and saw a thick layer of clouds. At some point, the night had ended. But there was no sign of a blue sky. The sky was depressing, dull, dark, and gray. In the distance, I could hear the ear-splitting sound of an ambulance and fire engine sirens. I could see helicopters circling in the sky above. There were so many, like flies. My head ached. It was like there was a road construction crew working overtime inside my skull. The pain was even worse than it had been during the last earthquake. I tried to remember what had happened just before my memories went blank. The white sky, what Takumi had called the third melt. I sat up trying to ignore the pain from my headache and was shocked by what I saw. Hey, it's the title screen. The city I knew was gone. It was like one of those post-apocalyptic movies that had been popular a decade ago. Shibuya had been destroyed. The traffic signals, the roadside trees, and even some of the buildings had fallen over. The famous televisions above Scramble Crossing were cracked and silent. Hey, just like the Shibuya incident. The roofs above the entrance to the subways had collapsed, burying them. The bridges where the Yamanote line ran had collapsed, leaving the severed rails jutting out into space. There were people lying everywhere. Blood and scraps of flesh clung to the rubble. People who weren't moving, people moaning in pain, people screaming, "Help me!" People covered in dust and dirt, crawling on the ground, deathly pale. People crying as they held an unmoving body in their hands. The smell of blood, the stench of something burning, and the smell of dust in the air. I could see pillars of smoke rising in the distance. So this was the power of Noatsu. I felt a wave of terror wash over me. It was the weapon of mass destruction. I finally understood why Shogun was so desperate. Stop it! Wait, where was Shogun? Okay, I'm sorry. I came back to my senses and looked around. I could see a badly bent wheelchair next to me. His tiny body was lying next to it. I ran over to him and held him in my arms. Hey! Hey, wake up! I yelled at him, but there was no answer. I couldn't hear the voice of his mind either. Was he dead? I put my ear up to his mouth. His breathing was faint, but he was breathing. He was just passed out. I tried giving him a light slap on the cheek, but he didn't wake up.
松は
Where is Noah 2?
どこにあるの
Unless I knew that, I couldn't even go save Rimi and Nanami. I would have asked Shogun to tell me earlier. I took my phone out from my pocket, but the battery was dead and nothing I did could make it turn on. It was useless now. Was there anybody besides Shogun who would know? Think. There was no time to waste. That Notose guy might decide to kill Rimi any minute. Who? Who else was out there that knew about Noah Tsusena and who could help me, Kozue?
君たちは特別な存在だ。
You're all special.
中でも一番
But the most special of you of all
その目
is that boy who created you. Whose eyes are
を
those?
生み落とした少年。
That dress is amazing, by the way. She's dripped the fuck out.
畑野
Issei Hatano,
一世
Senna's father, one of the original members of Project Noah's research team, and now he was missing. I'd never met him. No, I might have just missed him a few times. According to Kozue, he was wandering around Shibuya dressed as a homeless
見つけ
person.
るしかない
I'll have to find him. I picked up Shogun's body and carried him on my back as I started to walk through the rubble. He was shockingly light. I had no idea where Hatsuno could be. I just have to look for him. Shockingly light or not, Shogun's body still weighed around 20 milligrams. I didn't have the strength to carry him around Shibuya, not with the rubble and destroyed roads. I'd never done any real exercise in my life after all. All I did was sit in front of the PC. I thought about taking Shogun to a hospital, but with the way things were in Shibuya now, I couldn't call an ambulance. I ran out of strength halfway up one of these less steep hills in Dogenzaka. I was out of breath and my body was pouring with sweat. I wiped the sweat from my brow and stopped to catch my breath.
空へと突き出た夢しのサイド愛中の猛毒報いのせめくその目に流れた愛に包くがいい一つまた一つと闇に届けつなげて
And then I could hear a faint voice. The voice was sinking. It was sad but not in despair. It was pleasant to the ears. I'd heard the voice somewhere before. It was on the stage at a concert hall. Last time it had been accompanied by violently flashing lights that shocked the eyes, and earth-shakingly loud noise. But now, it was an empty road with no one around, in a collapsed city where death now ruled. Ayase. I put Shogun down and looked around me, but the only thing I could see were a few corpses. I looked around for Ayase, trying my best not to stare at the bodies. Where was her voice coming from? I could see a collapsed street in front of me. There was a hole opened in the ground, if I remembered right. The subway ran over this street. It didn't seem possible for her to be down there, but I looked over the edge anyway, just to see. It was about 5 meters deep. There were small piles of rubble everywhere. Ayase was lying there. Takumi.
今助けるよ
I'm coming! I leapt down into the hole. I screwed up the landing and fell face first into a pile of rubble. Ayase's leg was pinned by a lump of concrete and she couldn't move. I tried to keep it off of her, but it was too heavy for me to bulge by myself. It's not just me.
3人いる
There are 3 others here as well, including your sister.
ナナミが
Nanami's down here? Why was she here? Did that Norosei guy have her?
ナナミ
Nanami! Nanami! I ignored the pain I was feeling and forced myself to stand up. I shouted her name, but there was no reply. I looked around and saw one other woman besides Ayase. Lying face down on the ground, she wasn't moving, but I couldn't see any injuries. She was probably just passed out. I couldn't see Nanami or Yua. Maybe they'd been buried alive. I needed to do something fast! I glanced up at the hole above me. There was so much dust that it felt like I was going to start coughing just looking at it. Beyond it, I could see the sky. I thought of Shogun, who I had left lying on the ground. I remember what Rimi had said. The more delusions you create, the more it consumes the life of your real self. But there was no time to waste. D-sword! I sat down next to ISA and looked on her face, making sure to keep her leg out of my field of vision. I stared into her eyes. That was enough. Create a delusion. Make it strong. Make it real. There's not one piece of concrete on top of ISA. It's just a lot of smaller pieces. None of them are heavy. I can pull her leg out easily. I can save the others too. Me and ISA, if I create a shared awareness between two gigalomaniacs, it's bound to become real. I did not think that's how that shit worked. ISA smiled in relief. That is not how that shit works. This is a delusion. It was Glaciel who guided you here. I blinked and looked up trembling. That should be the Great Will. A few of them moved aside, and she was free. I hadn't for a moment thought it would work this well. She sat up and rubbed her ankle. Fortunately, she didn't seem to be badly injured. I heard your song. It guided me here. I see. Good. I'm glad I kept singing. I lent ISA a hand to help her to her feet and looked around us. Where's Nanami? I couldn't see my sister still. Had the delusion failed, or was she already... I started to get worried. I heard a voice. I looked in the direction it was coming from and saw a hand poking out from the rubble. I grabbed the hand by the fingers and looked through the gaps in the rubble. A small gap formed a small tunnel. It was a girl in glasses. I recognized her. It felt like it'd been a long time since I'd seen Yua. For some reason, this gap suddenly appeared. A moment ago, I couldn't even move. She looked away, sounding slightly apologetic. Hold tight! Huh? I gripped her hand harder, then I yanked as hard as I could to pull her out the rubble. ISA helped too. Together we were able to pull her without too much trouble at all. Thank you. Her whole body was covered in dust. There were tiny chunks of concrete clinging to her hair. But she didn't seem to be hurt. Now all that was left was Nanami. I left Yua to ISA and went to search for her. If ISA had been able to escape that easily, then my delusion had probably worked. And if that was the case, then I might be able to pull her out from a gap like I had with Yua. Just like I thought, after looking under a few piles of rubble, I was able to find her. Nanami! I called, but she didn't answer. She seemed to be unconscious. I reached out a hand to touch her, but then hesitated. That shit's so funny when it's not. Shit's so funny. I remember how she suddenly disappeared when I touched her yesterday. No, this Nanami was real. She had to be. I reached out and grabbed her shoulder, or rather, her blouse. I could touch her just fine. I could feel her warmth. I pulled out her hand as hard as I could, just like I'd done with Yua. Unlike the other girls, Nanami's clothes were covered in blood. Her arm in particular was bright red. I laid her face up on the ground to check her breathing. Her breathing was pained and barely there, but she was breathing. Good. Now I was worried about her blood-stained right hand. When I went to grasp it to take a look, my finger slipped right through it. A delusion. So Nanami's right hand was... Nanami let out a soft moan. Her face was covered in dust. I put a hand up to her cheek and softly ran my hand along it. Her eyes opened just a little. Her gaze wandered around the room. For each second she saw me. Nanami. Suddenly her face twisted in sadness. Tears came pouring down from her eyes. She gripped my hand tightly with her left hand. She pleaded with me in a whisper, but I shook my head a little. Alright, now what is Yua doing? Remy doing? Her memories were all messed up. That's how it seemed to Nanami Nishijo. Never mind! Her brother's words triggered something in her. It suddenly felt like she had two brothers. No, it didn't feel like she had two brothers. She had two brothers. She could see both their faces, one wimpy and helpless looking, covered in wrinkles. But she also was sure she only had a single brother. There was a gap. It was getting bigger. A gap between her memories and what she knew. What was real? What wasn't? She didn't know it, and it scared her. She tried to empty out her mind, and suddenly her own words came back to her, like rippling on the water. I have to be the big sister now. Suddenly, she was standing in a hallway at dusk. The pungent smell of disinfectant hung in her nose. There was a plain, unadorned door in front of her. She was holding its handle, then, without any conscious intent on her part, her hand opened the door. Hey, are you gonna skip dinner again, brother? I keep telling you, you have to eat or you won't get any better. Oh, don't tell me it's because it got green peas in it. You're not a little kid anymore. Don't be such a picky eater. I mean, I don't like green peas either, so I know why you wouldn't want to eat them, but if you don't eat them, I'm the one that gets yelled at by that scary head nurse. Nanami. What? I'm sorry for taking it all on you this time. It's really rare for you to apologize. But you won't have to put up with me anymore. What are you talking about? I'm going to have to go into hiding. So you don't need to come here anymore. What are you... Goodbye. Her memories ended there. The fact that she had an older brother, a real one. The fact that he was badly ill, and that she spent years taking care of him. The fact that she'd always tried to have her act together, to be strong. All these things had vanished from her memories for the past year and a half. The memories had been hidden from her, and in their place were other memories. Her brother was healthy and lived alone in Shibuya. Her mom had asked her to check in on him every once in a while, and she'd go to his place after school. This has been her habit for a long time. It was normal in her family. She'd never doubted these memories. Why did I forget? 30 minutes after she was rescued from being buried alive, Lavender Town, Nanami was finally reunited with her real brother. He was lying on the road. He was breathing but unconscious. His body was small, thin, covered in wrinkles. He looked so weak. It was the brother she'd always known. She was weeping as she clung to his tiny body. She heard a metallic clinking sound coming from his pocket. Something fell out of his breast pocket. It was what she'd sought for so long. It was what she'd lost when they'd taken her right hand. A cheap bangle with a snowflake design. She stared at his face confused, but his eyes wrinkled, stayed shut. She picked up the bangle with her left hand. It felt just like she remembered. The bangle was the first present her brother had given her. It was her treasure. She looked up, her eyes unconsciously searching for her other brother. He had his back turned to her and held a long sword in his hand. He was walking away. He was going to leave. Nanami's intuition told her this clearly. He was going to leave without saying anything to her. The thought made her sad. Go. Nanami squinted and looked around. Did I just hear a voice? It was her brother's voice as she remembered it. It was coming directly into her mind, coming from his unconscious body. He and I are one mind and two bodies. He's your other brother. Whether it was her brother's voice or just her own imaginings, Nanami couldn't tell, but either way. Yeah, okay. She whispered to her brother as he lay on the ground. And then she stood up and walked toward her other brother. She could barely walk. She spent days in a dark room, pinned to some bizarre object, forced to endure terrible pain. She didn't remember how many times she thought about dying. Her right hand especially had a constant pain, like someone had tore through the bone with a huge saw. It felt like there was no hand there, but when she looked, she could see one. The confused sensations were driving her insane. Mentally and physically, she was exhausted. If she wasn't careful, she might collapse here, unable to take another step. That's why it took all her strength and effort to even stretch out her hand. But she wanted to stop him from going, no matter how hard it was for her to do. She just barely squeezed out the word, but he heard it. He stopped and turned back at her. She'd succeeded in keeping him from leaving, but now she wasn't sure what to say. The reality was that this boy wasn't her brother, but her mind kept telling her he was. The two feelings got mixed together in her head, and she couldn't separate them. But the bangles she had on her left hand, it felt cold to the touch, but it was a present from him that warmed her heart. It connected the two of them, and that's how it felt to her. There was enough of an answer for her.
本当のお兄じゃないかもしれないけど、頼りにならなくておたくさんでアニメキャラのお人形さんばっかり集めてて、口が悪くて愛想もなくて意地悪なことばっかり言うけど、お兄もナナのお兄だよ。
She held back her tears and smiled as best she could.
ありがとう、ナナミ。
Her other brother gave her a shy smile, and then relieved, she slowly began to pass out. Nanami staggered like she was about to fall. I quickly ran over to grab her. She was unconscious, her face was pale, her breathing was labored. We have to get her to a hospital. Her life is in danger. The woman, who said her name was Momose, spoke sternly at her. And then she turned to look at Shogun. That child, too. I gave Nanami to Momose. Take care of both of them, please. What will you do? There's somebody I have to find. I needed the location of Noah, too. I'd asked Nanami, but she wasn't sure where they'd been holding her. My one chance was to find the man named Patsuno. It's necessary, isn't it? If we're going to Ficlaggio. Glaggio. If what she meant was Noah too. Yeah, that's right. Ayase's expression tensed. She took a step forward. She was dragging her foot a little. Maybe she'd been hurt after all.
一緒に行くわ。私も。
その必要はないよ。
Ayase just shook her head.
集まらないと。
We need all 7 of us.
綾瀬もそれに
I want you and Yua to find a man named Patsuno.
畑野っていう人を探してほしい。
Yua was standing behind Momose. When I said her name, I could see her twitch
その
nervously.
人が
He knows where Noah 2 is.
一緒に行動しなくて
We don't have to be together. I can see and hear everything you do.
したことがわかる。だから
So let's split
今
up
は
for
手
now.
分けして探して
Right now, that was the best option we had. We had to hurry. If another earthquake hit, there was no guarantee I'd survive. Understood.
わかった。
Ayase spoke, looking disappointed.
なんだかよくわからないけど、
I'm not sure I follow.
野瀬源一が
Genichi Nodose is behind all of
全ての
this.
黒幕です。
そういうこと。
So that's
そ
it.
れなら
You can let me handle the 2 of them then.
私に任せなさいな。
She puffed her chest out, and then she nodded as if trying to give me courage.
ただし、
Just don't do anything stupid.
それと一つ頼まれて。
And do me a favor.
バンちゃん、
If you see Bon, he's a middle-aged detective. Who Isaac dopey looking grin on his face. Tell him to call me. Was she talking about Yasujiban? I knew he was dead. His partner had shot and killed him. I'd seen it happen while unconscious. I tried to tell Momose that, but... Sheesh, where did that idiot wander off to, I wonder? Well, knowing him, he might be out there helping the wounded somewhere. But when I heard her say that, I just couldn't tell her. So yeah, let me know if you see him. Understood. I nodded. It was a promise that I knew I could never keep. But I don't think that's how... Never mind. But I don't think there's any other way to answer her. Nishijo.
西条くん
Yua's voice was barely audible, but she wasn't looking me in the eye. For the past few minutes, she'd been glancing over at me, waiting for a chance to speak.
あなたのこと疑って
I'm sorry for suspecting you.
私
I said all those terrible things to
傷
you.
つけるようなこと言って
The lenses of her glasses were covered with the dust. Even if I couldn't see her eyes, I could tell she was crying.
謝っても
I don't expect you to forgive me, even if I
い
apologize.
ないですそれでも
But still, let me say I'm sorry.
ごめんなさい
And I'm so sorry. She bowed deeply. I just turned my back to her without answering.
僕のベースにある
There's a Seta figure in the
セーラの
base.
フィギ
はい
Huh?
ュアよかったら
I'd like you to have it.
もらってくれる
It'd been a huge shock when I found out she lied to me, but now I knew what she'd been going through. But still, it felt like saying I'd forgiven her would just be arrogant. I'd always thought of her as my enemy. I wasn't entitled to an apology and didn't have the right to forgive her.
あの
You're sure?
いいんですか
もらってほしい
I want you to have it.
はい
Okay,
はいまた
Okay.
一緒に
let's go buy figures together
買い
again
に行きま
sometime.
しょうね
She finally gave me the kind smile I'd seen when we'd first met. I nodded. I then glanced at Ayase and Momose too. And finally, I took one long look at Nanami and Shogun. And then I started to walk alone through the piles of rubble.